Welcome back, guys. It's your boy Boomy and Co, and I welcome you to our channel, guys. So today it is the midnight money talk. So we're gonna continue off from the previous video, guys. So basically, in the previous video, we were talking about the illusion of money. Basically, the main focus was the Bretton Woods system that was functioning from 1944 and until 1971, when President Nixon took the dollar out of the gold standard, meaning that currencies became fiat ever since that day, guys. So today we're still gonna check into why money is an illusion, but this time we're gonna be focusing on inflation. So guys, I'm gonna be covering a whole lot of topics. After I cover those topics, we're gonna round up everything together so that you can see the connection between all these topics and how they interconnect or how they relate to one another. In order for you guys to do that, you need to pay attention into certain details that I mentioned, guys. If you want to go search up more, you can go search up more, just to always keep that brain muscle working. So today we're gonna talk about inflation. What is inflation, guys? What is inflation? Basically, inflation is the loss of purchasing power after a duration of time. That's inflation, guys, like the loss of purchasing power, meaning that today my easy waves is 20 rand, tomorrow it is 50 rand. That's inflation, and inflation is always skyrocketing. The reason why we experience inflation is because when we look at an equation, guys, remember accounting? What happens on one side must balance out to the other side. It's accounting. It's basically accounting. So we have our money supply here. The central banks control the money supply. They ensure that there's the right amount of money circulating, and they can influence people's buying and spending habits. The central bank can influence you spending money, a lot of money tomorrow, and you're not spending anything. They have that influence through hiking rates, cutting rates, all of those stuff. So if this is our money supply, so the central bank controls this, and this is the food supply in a country. Let's say South Africa is producing this amount of food, né? And the money is like this. That means that there's a balance between the money supply and the goods produced in the country. Once the government feels like, okay guys, you know what, we need to print money. Let's say we have an outstanding debt with another country that we need to pay it off. What we thought, or how we thought that by now we would have had enough jobs in the country, so the amount of tax paid by the citizens would have covered our debt, but now it's not the case. So what would they do? The central banks would print more money. When the central bank prints more money, there's an imbalance now, guys. You see, it was first year, now there's an imbalance because the money supply has increased, meaning that in order for everything to have a balance, like I said, in accounting, the equation needs to balance off. So in order for the equation to balance, what's gonna happen? The price of goods and services will rise. The price of goods and services will rise. It will rise in order to keep up with the money circulating in a country. So when government prints out money and flood money in the system, even though it could help temporarily, but in the long term it is not good. The more money that circulates in a country, the more useless it becomes. The less money that circulates, the more value a country has. That's why most countries nowadays, like my country for example, like we tend to like devalue our currency. Our government can devalue the currency on purpose. So why? So that it's cheaper to trade with other countries. So other countries can be like, oh, it's cheap in South Africa, let's purchase from South Africa, because the products in South Africa are much cheaper than if we purchase them from there, because the prices are low. And also it can also encourage tourism, because when prices are low, a lot of people tend to go to their country where prices are reasonable, where they could afford all of these things. But when a country's currency is high, you'll get less tourism and less exports. So countries, just know that countries can actually devalue their currency on purpose. They can control the interest rates, and they can cut the rates if they wanted to. They do this to ensure that what, there's a balance. So guys, now we're going to dive into more of this. So now we need to go back to the Roman ages, the Roman Empire, guys. You're going back to the Roman Empire, and I want to show you something significant, guys. If you listen to the earlier talk show that I've created, I stated that gold has intrinsic value. Currency does not have intrinsic value. Like I stated, during the Bretton Woods system, there was controlled government spendings, because money, the dollar, was backed to gold. It was backed to gold at a fixed rate. Now you take out the gold, money is free flowing, there's nothing backing it. It's elastic, it can stretch, it can, like, aerobatics on this. Okay guys, so like I said, let's go back now around about the year 178 in the Roman, and during the Roman times. So what happened was that the Roman Republic, like, there was no any signs hinting that there was inflation, because why? The people at that time were trading and minted gold and silver coins. So you could only spend what you have. You cannot spend what you don't have. If you have 5 gold coins, you can only literally spend 5 gold coins. So it would encourage disciplined spending in the economy during that time, guys. Let me just make sure of the date before I say anything that is not accurate. Okay, my phone is also dying, and I have my points here so that I don't forget anything, guys. So yes, during the year 112 BC, guys, what happened was that Rome went into the Second Punic War. So before we talk about the Second Punic War, let me just give you a brief understanding what happened in the First Punic War. So in the First Punic War, Rome was in war with Carthage. So while they were in war, Rome managed to beat Carthage. So what happened was that Rome forced Carthage out of Sicily, so that it became owned by the Romans. And also on top of that, Rome made Carthage pay reparations for the war. They had to pay reparations. That's what the price of losing a war could be. Just like with Germany before Hitler came into power, right? Germany lost the war, then they were forced to pay back the damages through the war, and which killed the economy, guys, because they didn't have money. So basically that's what happened. Then in the Second Punic War, years later, Carthage attacked Rome again. So this time Rome was going through financial struggles, guys. They were also funding a war. There was not enough money to keep funding the war. One thing you should know about war is that at that time, like, you need to pay soldiers. Soldiers are the people who actually fight for you. If you keep them well fed, keep them everything like that, they would be willing to die for you. So that was basically what was happening during that time. So the government found themselves in a tricky situation right now. It was either they cut payments or they do what is called increasing the money supply. Like, are they gonna increase the money supply or they're gonna pay back the soldiers? So what Rome did was they decided to increase the money supply. Guys, think about it. If you cut payments to the people that's supposed to be fighting for you, it could be risky, and you wouldn't want to have soldiers who rebel against you. So what they did was they started printing out more money. How did they do this? In today's time, in our day, the way to increase the money supply is by printing money digitally. So the central bank has the authority to print out money digitally. In the Roman times, what they did was kind of different, guys. So what they did was through taxation, when the citizens of Rome were coming in to pay their taxes, what the Roman officials would do is that they would take the coins and start coin clipping, something called coin clipping. That's one of the ways they increased the money supply, through coin clipping. So the people would walk into a government building, and they will the government would take their gold coins and start cutting it. But before they did the coin clipping, what they did, guys, was, I'm sorry I forgot about this. What they did was that they started to add copper into the gold and silver. By adding copper into gold and silver, it reduces its purity, but it also helps increase the money supply. Printing money today decreases the value of our money, but it helps increase the money supply. Do you see the correlations between back then and today? So still come guys, continue with me. Come on now, let's get into it. This is getting more interesting. I love this so much. So they started adding copper into the gold and silver coin, decreasing its purity. So this is when inflation was starting to come and boil up. So the government also had to come up with more ways, like new ways to increase the money supply. Like I said, it's through coin clipping. Coin clipping is basically when the citizens were going into the government building, right? So what the Roman officials would do is will take that minted gold and silver, and they would cut an edge of it. For every coin that enters, they would cut an edge, and they would create a whole new currency. And that's how they were printing money back then, and that's how they increased the money supply back then, guys. So they did this to fund the war, but the problem was this was robbing from the people. This is literally stealing from the people, because now, guys, you need to literally spend more money to buy the same product. At that time, your salary is not increasing. It's not increasing at the rate that inflation is increasing. So what does it mean? It means that you're going from middle class to broke, and from broke to broke, from rich to middle class. That's basically inflation. Slowly but surely this was happening. So people could see the signs, but they don't understand what's happening. So this was happening, guys, and as it was happening, the people, like, they got so desperate and stuff. The Romans were so desperate and stuff. So what they did was, their money was decreasing in value. So what the Roman officials decided to do, and this is what most countries even today still do, just like with Zimbabwe, what they do is basically, once the money circulation in a country gets out of control, they start to increase taxes to help, because the goal is to do what? You want to have a country where there's stability. You don't want a country where the circulation of money is here, but the goods are here, guys. It's gonna cause chaos. So what they tried to do was to level up the playing field. And how do they do that? By increasing taxes. But it did not help. It just created the situation worse, because now people are angry, people are fighting, people want increase in wages, guys. So what happened was that there was even a time, man, like 1 pound of gold equaled 50,000 denarii. 50 years later, after all the coin clipping and everything, 1 pound of gold was equivalent to 1.2 billion denarii. Crazy. Let me make you an example for like that can relate to us today, like just so you guys can have a picture of how this was crazy. So let me just get to it quickly, guys. Let me just get to my point quickly, just to get the measurements and the calculations correct. Okay, yes, so yeah, it is, guys. So I'm gonna make a similar demonstration to that, like what, so that we can relate more, like you can relate in terms of, you can see how crazy this was, guys. So if we use the same analogy in today, it'll simply go like this. I'm gonna use South African currency, and I'll also use the dollar for our international people, guys, so that you can have an understanding of what I'm talking about. So like I stated on my article, you should go read my article, guys. Like I stated, a VW Golf 7R car, it costs 695,000, guys. So Rome was hit with an hyperinflation of 42,000%, right? 42,000%. Let's say South Africa today was hit with a 42,000% inflation. That will simply mean that our a Golf 7R will move, the price will go from 695,000, and it will be equivalent to 295,336,000 rand. Imagine a golf price today. Your golf is 670. Tomorrow it is 250 million, but your salary hasn't changed. That is the reality of hyperinflation. It's crazy. If you're not prepared, it will consume you. God, you just better pray that it doesn't hit your country, guys. You better pray. But I'll teach you guys how to hedge against inflation. But first you need to understand how the mechanics of everything works, so that you know how to hedge. I'm not gonna just tell you. I want you guys to just bear with me, guys. Bear with me. Okay, cool. So a loaf of bread costs 20 rand. With a 42,400% inflation, hyperinflation, you would have to pay 8,480 for a loaf of bread. 8,000. Your salary is not increased. 8,000 for a loaf of bread. Hey, crazy. If your dream house costs $387,000 with a 42,400% hyperinflation, you would have to pay 164 million dollars for a house. Guys. Inflation is crazy. So this is what the Roman people did. What this did was that whether you were middle class or you're broke, even rich people suffered, guys. Hyperinflation at this magnitude, if you were rich, you cannot live the same rich lifestyle. If you're middle class, welcome. Your money will be wiped, your savings wiped, everything wiped, zero. You'll be the same as poor, having nothing. This is the sad reality of life, guys, and this is the type of topics I'm covering because people need to be aware of this things, guys. It's really important for you to flex your brain muscles and get yourself learning, educated, so that you can survive in the long run. How does a lion pride survive? Does it pray? Or it gets out there and it does what it needs to do? This is life. Life is not fair. Life is really not fair. So this is why I'm gonna be covering a lot of these topics, guys. I just need y'all to, yes, this is crazy, guys. This is really crazy. So today's monetary system has the same principles as the Romans, guys. It has the same principles. 1971, President Nixon, President Nixon is from the United States, was a United States president. He took out the dollar from the gold standard. Money is fiat. There's so much money today, guys. There's a lot of money. There's a lot of money. So that's why it's important, guys. And there's something that's actually happening right now. We might even be experiencing a change in world power, guys. These things are happening right before our eyes as we speak, but that's later things. 1971, President Nixon took the dollar out of the gold standard. It has the same similar concept as the Roman elite at that time. Coin clipping, cutting off a piece of precious metal to create more metal, putting copper in gold and silver to increase the money supply, guys. It never ends well. When there's an overflow of money in an economy, but there's not enough goods and services to back it, hey, it's gonna go crazy. And this thing that I wanna talk about, you know that thing where like, hey, if Elon Musk has 200 billion, why doesn't he donate 1 million to everybody in South Africa? Hey, bro, that will cause hyperinflation. Because what's gonna happen is that there's gonna be more people wanting to buy. More people would have availability to buy. Shops cannot produce so much like that, and like it'll be crazy. Like everybody would spend. So what this would do is that there would be so much money, little food. What will happen is that the prices will rise. The prices of food will rise. You'll see now bread being 10,000, and it'll still be the same. So, guys, my point is that when there's so much money circulating, it loses its authenticity. Have you ever heard of prices going from 20 rand to 15 rand? Have you ever heard the price of bread going from 20 rand to 15 rand? No. We live in a fiat currency system. And that's the end of part 1, guys. Part 2 is part 2 of inflation. Like I said, this is a part 1 when I was speaking about the Bretton Woods system. Go check out that video if you haven't checked it out. Now this is part 2, but the topic here is inflation, and we're gonna have an inflation part 2, guys. If you like me and you like reading, go check out my website. I have valuable content there, guys, meant to help you grow and build your brain muscles, your financial brain muscles, guys. Gotta get this brain to work. Until next time, guys, peace. boom, boom. Let me play. Should I? Nah, I'm not gonna do that. Oh, this thing's still recording.